You're listening to JTE Movie Thinks. Is that the title? Is that correct grammar? All right, we'll go with it. It's a show about movies and thinking. And now, here's your host, every man's hero, JTE.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to JTE Movie Thinks. The podcast is back. I promised you 4 weeks in a row because I took like a month and a half off. That's a whole nother story. I was just busy with life. Speaking of busy with life, I have the man, the myth, the legend, the angel sent from heaven, the beast, William Bibbiani.
That might be the nicest intro I've ever had. Thank you, JTE.
I use it a lot, so don't feel
that's... I'm leaving. That's it. I'm just going to go. This is me walking away. That's that sound effect. No, thank you very much for having me. Obviously, we have a long history of you kicking my ass, sort of this way and that.
You beat me on free-for-all.
I beat you in free-for-all, but when it counted, you destroyed me, and fair enough. Yeah. It took me a while to come to terms with that, but now I think we're cool.
Listen, you're listening to this, you know what happened. I've lost my belts.
Yes.
I've lost the championship belts, but I remember when you and your partner Whitney became a team, I was worried.
Oh.
And like when the Schmodown tournament started, I was like, oh no, these guys are it's probably who we're going to end up meeting.
And then they wouldn't give us a match for like 8 months.
And then you lost to Late to the Party?
Late to the Party by 1 point.
Upset, but it was. Now I don't think it would be.
No, we didn't really know how good they were. I mean, they had like a good match, and it was a high-scoring match, but they lost it, and then they went up against us, and it was a really high-scoring match. It was like 27-28 or 26-27. We lost by 1 point.
A lot of points.
And that was, so I don't feel bad about that. The only thing I feel bad about was that it kept us out of the Schmodown for 8 months. We wanted to play, and we almost did a couple of times, and then just stuff happened, and scheduling and stuff. It's always something. But we knew we were good, and so we're back. We just had our big match, first debut match of 2018, and we got a TKO. And now we have a match coming up against MODOK sometime, hopefully very soon.
Oh, okay.
So hopefully we're back on track.
Well, it's a race to the belts. We have a chance to win it back. We'll see if that happens. But listen, Schmodown's fun. But first and foremost, you are a movie lover. And that's one thing I think a lot of us in the Schmodown, when you meet people, I know pretty quickly from talking to somebody if they're a real competitor because their love of film and knowledge of film will just kind of pour out. And I didn't know who you were before the Schmodown.
That's fair.
It's fair. I mean,
I didn't know who you were either.
Of course you did.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't know a lot of people. What the funny thing is though, me and my girlfriend, whenever we watch a new movie or something she hasn't seen, we will always go to Rotten Tomatoes and look for the critic reviews. And we always look for our friends. And almost every time you pop up on the Rotten Tomatoes, she's like, "Oh, here's what Bib said," and then we'll read your review right before we watch the movie,
just to see how wrong I'll be.
Just to see what your thoughts are. We just watched a movie, and we're going to get to this show, which is me asking you what's the last movie you watched. But we watched a film last week called Thelma.
Oh, yeah.
And I had never even heard of it, to be honest with you. That one slipped through the cracks. And then April went through Rotten Tomatoes, and she found your review, and you were one of the few negative reviews.
I found it a little, just sort of a little something I'd seen before. Thelma is a European film, and it is about a young woman who goes to college. She's from a very staunch conservative religious upbringing. And it turns out that that conservative upbringing has been holding at bay not just her burgeoning homosexuality, but also psychic powers.
Yeah, very much like in the vein of Professor X in a way, in some ways.
It feels more like Carrie to me than anything else. And I felt that although it was well crafted in a lot of ways, I didn't think it necessarily brought a lot new to the genre. That said, it has a lot of big fans, and I get what they see in it. Wasn't my favorite. But yeah, so that's interesting. What did you guys think?
I was okay with it. I think she liked it maybe a little more than me. It's right now, guys. If you want to check it out, I recommend you do because it is interesting.
Sure,
I was never bored.
I did not give it like a huge pan. No. I just thought it didn't quite go from okay to great.
And from watching it, I can totally understand where it's coming from. It's streaming, I believe, on Hulu for free right now. I believe that's where we watched it. But yeah, we love doing it. We love going through the Rotten Tomatoes, and sometimes we'll see Scott Mance, sometimes we see Drew, but almost every time we see William Bibbiani on there, and it's fun to just read your review. It's fun for me because sometimes there'll be a movie she hasn't seen that I have, and I'm like, oh, what did she write? Listen, it's weird to be able to do that. Like most people can't just scroll through Rotten Tomatoes like top critics and see their friends' reviews.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's a weird scene.
It is a weird scene that I somehow ended up in Hollywood, and I somehow ended up in a place where I know all these great people who really know movies and love film.
I still feel like a total outsider, to be perfectly honest. I know some people, like, I run into people now who say that that's weird. But, like, you know, I know people and, like, you know, we're friends, but, like, we're all, like, kind of adults now.
Yeah.
And when you're not in college, it's hard to hang out. Like, we've never, like, hung out. You and I. It's never
totally.
come up. Not that I wouldn't do it, but we're busy.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't feel like I'm part of like this real clique, even though I guess kind of I am. But I always feel like I'm a little bit on the outside looking in with all you cool kids.
I get
coming
that.
to work here at Screen Junkies.
Well, I remember first meeting Alicia Malone like 3-4 years ago. We all met up at a Chili's after a schmo show. She just moved here from Australia.
Yeah.
And her accent was even thicker.
Yeah.
Like it's almost gone now. And she was the sweetest girl, and I love Alicia. She's one of my favorite people. Cut to 3 years later, she's on the Oscars.
Oh my God, she's hosting TCM.
Yeah, I know.
Oh my God, she is. And honestly, I'm so excited for her. I mean, those are dream jobs. Like literally, since I was a kid, I wanted to like host TCM, and she deserves it, and she's so good at it. But like, it's just one of those things where you just like oh my God, that's the dream. That's so cool. And I get to be like 8 degrees of Kevin Bacon away from that. And I get to say hi to her sometimes.
Yeah,
like, it's really cool.
It is weird. Like I remember when she first hosted the Oscars red carpet one year. I think it was for E! or one of the news stations. I remember just thinking, there she is. This girl I known for a couple of years, and I'm not surprised either because she had a great work ethic. She knows her stuff. And it's just great to see people be rewarded for the way they should be, honestly.
And she has a really cool book.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone should be reading too. Backwards and in Heels.
Bought it. I pre-ordered it at Junks.
Yeah. So by all means, check that book out. It's really cool. I love it when people I know write books and publish things. Like my wife has self-published some stuff right now, and she's got a new novel that she just did. You can check that out on Amazon. She has a book called The Dog Next Door and Other Disturbances, which is all short horror stories, and there's some really, really good stuff in there. Like the title story really messed me up.
Oh, that's awesome.
So and she's got like a novel she just finished and everything, and it's super cool. So I'm in awe of people who can do that much.
Yeah, and then like sometimes I used to go to gas stations and I would see Scott Mance pop up in these little TVs.
I used to see that too.
Right?
It's so
and
weird.
It's like
what Scott? Because when you see Scott Mance, if you know Scott Mance personally. Anyone who's listening to this podcast, and you're out in public and he's like within a block away, he will yell your name and charge at you, and he'll give you the biggest hug, and he is always super excited to see you.
Yeah, he's the best.
He's a lovely human being. And so when you're like doing your guest and all of a sudden this guy you start hearing his voice, you're just like, oh God, and you come in for the hug and you almost hug this big gas pump, and it's not Scott. It's not really Scott.
Yeah, I grew up in Bristol, Connecticut, small town, East Coast. For me, Hollywood may as well have been Mars.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I will never end up living in Hollywood. I know nobody on the West Coast. It's just, once you get older and you kind of decide where you want to go, what you want to do, it just happened to take me here. And I just happened to come through this like weird. And when I went to film school, there was no internet film community really.
Yeah.
Like there was, but not to the degree
it wasn't
it is
an
now.
Industry the way it is
exactly.
now.
It wasn't like a job. I wasn't like I'm going to go work on the online like movie talk industry.
Yeah. Well, video streaming wasn't what it is.
Yeah.
Like like video. Like back when you and I we're about the same age, right? You're mid-30s.
Yep.
Okay. So like when we were in film school, digital media was still relatively fresh.
I was still doing 35 millimeter mags.
I was editing on 16 millimeter on these big editing bays, and you had to have a physical splicer, and like you start going mad because it's the process of editing one scene together takes hours. And it was great. It was a great experience, and it really teaches you the value of each cut when you can't just do it willy-nilly like you do on a computer. But my point is that, the industry changed very rapidly, and there's a whole bunch of jobs that did not exist then that exist now.
Totally.
And it's very, very strange. I want to go back. I didn't realize you were from Connecticut.
That's
my
right.
family on my father's side is all from Connecticut.
Oh, no way.
You ever been to Chester?
I've driven through Chester.
Okay. My dad's family is from Chester, Connecticut.
From Bristol, Connecticut, home of ESPN. That's basically all we're known for.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I don't follow ESPN.
I'm a big sports guy. I think growing up in the town that ESPN created, it kind of is like, why? But yeah, Bristol, Connecticut. I just always Hollywood just felt like, because again, I had no family over here. I went to film school, and again, I barely learned digital. It was all 16, 35 millimeter.
Yeah.
I just never thought I would be where I am now. I mean, to say I could come to work and just talk about Avengers for like a couple hours, like that's my job.
It's
like
a good gig if you can get it.
It's great.
And it's harder and harder to get paid for it. So I'm actually
Yes.
super jealous of you right now. So there's that.
Well, unfortunately, you're not paid to be on JTE Movie Thinks podcast.
I get paid in exposure.
Yes, there you go. So, all right, let's get into the episode. So, on this show, I basically, a lot of times, depending on who I have on, I'm like, what's the last movie you saw? But a lot of times, like, a lot of my friends are critics or people that have their own podcasts, like you do, critically acclaimed.
I have two podcasts. There's Critically Acclaimed, where we review new movies, and we poll our listeners, and they pick a bad movie for us to review every week, and then we do a double feature with a good movie.
With a good one, yep.
To see how they sort of balance off against each other.
Cancel Too Soon?
And also Cancel Too Soon, where we review TV shows that lasted one season or less. And for every famous one a lot of people have heard of, like, Firefly or Adventures of Briscoe County Jr., there's a million obscure, weird things that, like, no one knows about, and we get to discover a lot of it.
Was
It's
there
really
a
cool.
RoboCop TV series?
There was a series. Okay, there were two.
Oh,
there was
there
the
were two.
animated series, on,
Yes.
which was, I think, was only one
That one I
season.
know.
And there was a series of live-action TV movies, almost like the way they do
okay.
Sherlock.
Okay.
That were done in Canada.
Interesting.
And we might do that one. Last season, because it was technically this year, we did a whole month dedicated to our favorite TV genre, human cops with robot partners. There's more of those than you'd think. And we almost did RoboCop, but then we realized he's more of a cyborg, so we'll get to that eventually. So those are the two podcasts, Critically Acclaimed, which is on the Schmoes Know Network, and Canceled Too Soon, which is its own thing.
Interesting. So the thing is, like, I want to ask you, like, what is a movie you watched that you didn't have to for your podcast?
Right.
Not something you went to a screening for. What's the last movie either you grabbed out of your collection, or maybe it's something you saw streaming on Netflix or Hulu, or maybe you're on a plane and you're like, I'm going to watch this.
I physically rented a DVD.
What?
Yeah, we still have those here in Los Angeles. So here's the thing. I tend to tweet, not a lot, but I'll just tweet what I'm watching. So, like, if you, like, look at my, like, account at, like, Now Watching or whatever, this is actually a while ago.
Okay.
Because I watch a lot of stuff, but most of it is directly or tangentially for work. So the last thing I watched that was my choice, didn't have to write about it, just wanted to see it, was the 1971 horror anthology, The House That Dripped Blood.
Okay, so it's rare. But sometimes
really.
No. It's rare that I haven't seen the movie. Someone has brought up. It happens.
Okay.
But
I feel like it's rude now.
No,
Okay.
it's great because I get to talk about why I didn't see it, and I get to talk about movies like it, and this gives me a chance of something I might probably want to watch if you recommend it. I've heard of it before.
Yeah, it's got a famous title. It's a great title.
Yeah,
it's very
it is a great
evocative.
title.
The House That Dripped Blood.
So give me the back of the DVD synopsis.
Okay, so The House That Dripped Blood is a horror anthology. It's
love.
directed by a guy named Peter Duffel, who didn't do a lot of big movies, directed a lot of TV. It was written by Robert Bloch, and Robert Bloch wrote the original novel for Psycho.
Oh, okay.
So that's a good pedigree. It stars Peter Cushing. It stars Christopher Lee, even though they have no scenes together. It stars John Pertwee from Doctor Who. It stars Desmond Llewellyn from the Indiana Jones movies. He plays Marcus Brody. And it is from Amicus Productions. I think it's Productions. And a lot of people know about Hammer horror films. And Hammer had this very long series of successful horror movies, mostly throughout the 50s, 60s, and 70s, that were very colorful, that were very violent, that were very sexual. And they were a brand unto themselves, not unlike Blumhouse is now. If Hammer put it out and you like horror, you probably went to see it.
Is it lower budget or higher budget? Was it like Roger Corman era?
No, it's not that low. Like
Okay.
some of them were, but most of them were pretty good. So Hammer was the big one.
Okay.
And Amicus was off to the side. Amicus was like the other one.
Okay.
And what Amicus did mostly, what they were most famous for, were horror anthology movies. And if you've seen an anthology movie, it's usually there's a wraparound device where people are, I don't know, they're around a campfire and they're telling stories. And each story is a little installment and it's individual episodes.
I feel like 80s was a strong time for these, like Creep Show 2, Tales from the Dark Side, Twilight Zone. And that's like all 80s basically, right?
Yeah, well, I think Tales from the Dark Side, the movie was technically 1990, but Tales from the Dark Side
So
TV
right there.
series.
Okay.
But Amicus really had a stranglehold on this for a while, and I'd seen some other stuff. In particular, they're probably most famous for Tales from the Crypt, the movie.
Oh.
Which is
Demon Knight?
No. So there was
the old one with the old guy in the castle.
1972. Yeah.
Yes.
So we all
forgot
know
all about
we
that.
all know the HBO series, and the HBO
Yes.
series was all based off of original Tales from the Crypt comics, and some of them were done in the original movie.
Yep.
And then Tales from the Crypt had actually 3 spin-off movies. They were all individual tales. There's Demon Knight, which kicks ass. There's Bordello of Blood, which
Not good.
not good, but it's kind of fun in like a slumber party kind of way.
Guess.
I wouldn't recommend it, but if it sounds like something you might want to see, it'll probably get.
I'm glad you
where
like
you're
Demon
going.
Knight because I love
Demon
that
Knight
movie.
is cool.
I recently picked up the Shout Factory Blu-ray of it.
Oh yeah, Demon Knight is super cool. Also, if you're a big fan of Demon Knight, one of the episodes we did in the last few months on Canceled Too Soon was about a short-lived horror show called Brimstone, which was created by the guys who wrote Demon Knight and used the same mythology.
Oh, that's what I love
So
about
it's
it.
kind of, it's not quite in the same universe, but like if you like Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight, seek out this show called Brimstone. It's about a guy, it was about a cop who killed the man who assaulted his wife, and as a result, when he died, he's in hell. And then there's a jailbreak from hell, and the devil, played by the great John Glover from Smallville,
Yeah.
He's and Gremlins 2.
Yeah.
The devil gets this guy to go back to Earth and bring him back to hell.
Interesting.
And every episode is him bringing back like a new superpowered demon.
Sounds like Spawn a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. It's a really, really good show. We had a good time rediscovering that
Brimstone.
one. Yeah, it's totally worth it. But yeah, so the original Tales from the Crypt was about a bunch of people who sort of mysteriously found themselves in like a castle or a cave or something.
Yeah,
and
I honestly totally forgot it. And then once you mentioned it, I really remember the castle and the old man. And I was just like, oh my God, I remember nothing about the movie, just that old man.
There's good stuff in there. There's one installment with, I think, Joan Collins, where she kills her husband on Christmas. And then there's like an escaped maniac who's dressed like Santa Claus and he's trying to break into the house.
I think I have seen it.
And she can't call anyone for help because she just killed her husband. And then her daughter lets the guy in because he's Santa.
Yeah.
Like, it's really, really creepy.
Okay, now I remember this.
Yeah, there's a really good one with a guy who like buys or inherits like a home for the blind, and he starts abusing the people, and then they kidnap him and they put him in like a dark hallway filled with like deadly traps and things.
Oh,
And
wow.
and he can't see, and it just him
sounds awesome.
destroying himself. It's really cool. Like that one's a good movie.
The Santa one, actually, I remember that one vaguely. The second one you mentioned, I don't. I think I got it mixed up a lot with like Tales of the Dark Side.
Sure.
And all these George A. Romero's. What's the one that he did? Creep Show. The
he did
first
Creep Show. He did the first Creep Show.
I remember Creep Show 2 more than I do the original.
That's weird.
that
because
weird?
Creep Show 2 only has one good one.
Well,
Some people like the Hitchhiker one. For me, it's all about the Raft.
it's The Raft is by far the best.
The
It's
Raft
based
is
on a
amazing.
Stephen King.
Yeah.
And the one, but I remember liking the Indian one.
The Indian one does not. Did you watch it recently?
It's like a Freddy. It's like a Jason movie. But with a statue.
It probably would have been more fun as a Jason movie, but the pacing on its way off. It takes forever to get
been a
set
while.
up. The acting isn't that great from a lot of the characters, and ultimately it's really simple. There's not a big reversal to it. It doesn't have a lot of like the crazy showpersonship of like a lot of Creep Show.
So would you say The House That Bleeds? Where would you rank it amongst all these other
House That
ones?
Drip Blood is actually quite low.
Drips
on that
Blood.
list.
Oh, it's low. Okay.
It's not great. It's kind of fun. Here's the thing. There's no blood in it. There's not even like
Really?
a drop of blood. Like
What?
it's completely bloodless.
How
Like,
do you
it's
make
really
a
weird.
movie called The House That Drips Blood?
It's a good title. That's how you
That's
do it.
all they did. Okay.
So the idea for this one is that a bunch of people have sort of died after renting this house in the countryside.
Okay.
And a guy comes in to sort of investigate, and the local police say, "Listen, there's a bunch of mysterious crap that's happened here, and let me show you all the case files." And that's the setup. And I love watching horror anthologies just in general, partly because they have to solve kind of the same problems over and over again, like why are we watching this?
Yeah.
What's the gag? What's the gimmick? And sometimes they have a great gimmick. Sometimes they have a lame gimmick. It might have nothing to do with the quality of the stories. There's a good one. There's a great gimmick, not a good movie, in a movie called Terror Tract. It stars John Ritter.
Don't think I've seen that one.
Yeah, no one has. John Ritter is a real estate agent, and he's showing people around, like this young couple, he's showing them a bunch of new houses. And there's that rule. I don't know how literal it is or how far it goes back, but when you're a real estate agent and selling someone a house, you can't lie to them. You have to tell them what happened in the house beforehand.
Okay.
And so when they ask him what happened in this house, there's always a horrible story about how someone died in it. And he has to tell them. And the movie keeps going. It gets more exasperated because he wants to sell a house and he can't. And it's really terrible. And that was kind of weird. There's one installment in there with Bryan Cranston and a killer monkey.
Okay.
And this is before Bryan Cranston was anybody, so it's really weird.
Like Monkey Shine?
Yeah, like Monkey Shine. It's
Okay.
like, it's really weird. So that's a great setup, not a good movie. Here, it's an okay setup. And there's a bunch of different short stories. First one stars Desmond Llewellyn from Indiana Jones. He's a writer. He's a horror writer. And he moves into this house to write a novel. And he has created a sort of homicidal maniac character. But then he starts seeing him actually around the house. And his wife is telling him, like, no, there's nothing here. He's like, no, look in the corner. I can see him right there. And she's like, I don't see anybody. And then, should I tell people how the twist goes? Or
I would say just no.
No?
Let's keep it spoiler free just because
There's a
it's such an
twist.
old movie. I don't know
Yeah.
how many people have actually seen it.
There are twists in that one. There's a couple of twists in that one. It's pretty clever. There's another installment with Peter Cushing.
Pure cushion.
Yeah, Grand Moff Tarkin himself.
Of course.
He plays I think he's a widower. And he moves into the house and he just wants a quiet life in the country. And then he goes into town and there is a wax museum in town. And he's like, well, nothing else to do. And he sees that there is a woman. It's like a ghoulish wax museum with like vampires and stuff. And there's like a person with like a severed head of a woman in there, but she looks like his ex-wife or his dead wife.
Okay.
And so that's a good setup and it doesn't quite go where you want. It also co-stars Joss Ackland, the bad guy from Lethal Weapon 2.
Oh my God, the tall English guy or the older
the
one?
South African guy.
Yeah.
He's like, diplomatic immunity. Like,
Okay, great.
So it's always weird to see him in a movie because he looks like he's always been that age.
Yeah.
Then there's one with Christopher Lee, and he moves in with his young daughter. His wife is out of the picture, and he hires a governess to sort of take care of her. And she is concerned that Christopher Lee is being this like sort of tyrannical, controlling father. And then she gradually begins to realize he's doing that for a reason, and there's actually something supernatural going on.
Okay.
That's a pretty good one.
These all sound interesting.
They're okay. Like they vary, just they never quite go like, yeah. And then the last one, it ends on a dumb one, unfortunately, because there's usually like a silly one. And John Pertwee, one of the doctors from Doctor Who, I want to say the third.
I know nothing about Doctor Who, so
the one with the opera cape.
Okay.
He plays an actor who moves into the house in order because he's filming a movie nearby. He's filming a horror movie, and he's a vampire. And in order to get into the role, he buys this antique cape from a store, but the cape is cursed, and whenever he puts it on, it turns him into a real vampire.
Cursed cape, and he turns a vampire.
Yeah.
These sound interesting and out there, but you're saying maybe the execution didn't.
The execution's not
quite
great,
there.
and the biggest problem is that when it all like, a lot of them will sort of like all come crashing together at the end, like like the big end. Once the end, the wraparound device is, aha, the twist was you're really in hell, or haha, the twist was blah, and haha, the twist was blah. Sounds like the title of something. I need to write that down.
That's a t-shirt.
Ha, the twist was blah. But this one, when it comes together, I'm not going to tell you how it comes together, even though I could because it's so lame. It's like you watch it and it's just like, that makes no sense whatsoever. That's really freaking thin. Like, it's really thin. That would be like if the twist at The Usual Suspects was, oh, who is Kaiser Soze? And it turns out he's that guy. Oh, was he in the movie before? No.
No, it was used like some extra in the background.
Yeah.
For me, when I think about these movies, and I try to think, like, what is the best of these? I kind of want to go Twilight Zone.
Okay.
Because I think if I was going to pick one short out of like any anthology, the John Lithgow on the Airplane, which is a remake of original episode of William Shatner.
How Terror 10,000 feet?
Yes,
no,
I
20,000
believe
feet?
so.
Yeah.
That to me Still holds up to this day.
That's a great segment.
And it's amazingly shot. I'm not sure who directed that one.
It was George Miller.
It was George Miller.
From
Okay.
Road Warrior and Mad Max Fury Road.
Landis did the racist guy who goes in other people's bodies.
And of course, there was a horrible, tragic event
I watched
on the set.
I remember watching a True Hollywood Story on that whole thing, and it was fascinating.
It's
and
horrible.
Horrible.
Sadly, no one should ever die in the making of a
Yeah.
movie, and people died in a really, really unfortunate.
Hearing that story,
accident.
I'm shocked that that scene even made it to.
They cut
released
out.
it.
They cut out the bit.
Yeah.
That would have been in that scene, but honestly, they probably should have just cut that whole segment.
That's how I feel. Yeah.
Because if you know anything about it, it's really morbid. There's a segment by Joe Dante.
That's the first one with the kid.
Yeah, no, it's not the first one. It's like the third one.
What's the one with the kid and like whatever he imagines?
Yeah, that's the Joe Dante one.
That
I
is
don't
the
think
Joe
that's
Dante
first.
one. Okay, so
I think the first one is the John Landis one.
It is Landis one.
I could be wrong. I haven't seen it in a while. But yeah, he did. So there's this classic episode of The Twilight Zone with Billy Mooney where he plays this kid who can do anything he thinks of. And adults are humoring this child because if they don't, he'll do something creepy like wish them into the cornfield, which just sounds so creepy when you think about it. And like John Landis brought that to life in a really demonic way, in a way that they could never do in the original series. For me, the problem with the Twilight Zone movie,
because is there a weak bunch?
the Steven Spielberg one's really weak.
Oh,
the Spielberg
the
one,
old folks home.
the old folks home
Yeah.
one is just. It's not
It's
even
weird that Spielberg would be the weakest link in there.
It's so sappy because, like, when we think of the Twilight Zone, we tend to think of the really dark, creepy episodes. There were light episodes of the Twilight Zone. There were funny ones.
Yeah,
there
for
were
sure.
sentimental ones. And Spielberg clearly gravitated towards the sentimental when
Yeah.
he had the chance to do whatever he wanted. And it doesn't belong in that movie. One, it's just corny as hell.
Yeah.
Scatman Carruthers from The Shining, great actor, rarely got good roles. He moves into an old folks' home, and by playing a game of kick the can, he can make all the other people in the place young again.
It's like Cocoon.
A lot like an extreme
like a
version
weird
of Cocoon.
version
But
of
yeah,
Cocoon.
yeah, it's Cocoon.
Yeah.
So
That's sad because Spielberg, a lot of people say he kind of directed Poltergeist. Like, I feel like he has the horror chops in him.
Oh, he watch Duel and Jaws. He knows what he's doing.
Moments in Close Encounters are as scary as any horror movie.
Yeah. No, Spielberg is a great genre filmmaker, and he can do pretty much anything he sets his mind to. The whole Poltergeist thing is tricky because he was very hands-on as a producer.
Yeah, it was Todd Hooper, right?
Toby Hooper.
Toby Hooper, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Yeah, and he's great, and I can see a lot of Spielberg's influence on that, and I know people who worked on it who have said, yeah, Toby Hooper totally directed that. I also
Really?
have met people who worked on it who said, yeah, Steven Spielberg totally directed that.
Because I've met people, I used to work in production, and I've heard like Spielberg directed that movie. And I'm like,
Yeah.
but like you said, there's probably people that said, no, Hooper did.
It's a collaborative project,
Yeah,
clearly.
more
So,
of a collaborative.
but yeah, for me, when you look at a horror anthology, what you're usually looking at is a mixed bag.
Yeah.
Usually there's they're mostly crap, but there's one great one. One example of this is VHS 2.
So much better than the first one, in my opinion.
Better than the first one.
But that last one by Gareth
Edwards?
Evans?
Gareth
Edwards.
Evans.
You're right.
No, it's
Evans.
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 Edwards did
Godzilla.
Yeah,
Evans
did
did The Raid.
So, like, the guy who did The Raid did one of the scariest
It's
horror shorts
amazing.
I've ever seen.
And visually, it's amazing.
It's astounding. Like,
Yeah.
it's really terrifying.
good.
And, like, the other ones are okay. There's this kind of fun one about, like, a guy wearing one of those GoPro bicycle cameras
Yeah, it's
on
a
his helmet,
zombie.
and then he becomes a zombie, and it becomes a first-person
Yeah, yeah.
zombie movie. That's cute.
They're
but
okay.
It's so overshadowed by the good one. That is just astounding.
Gareth Evans not done something in Hollywood yet?
I don't
The
know.
Raid 1 and 2 are amazing.
I assume there are conversations. I honestly
Gotta
don't
be.
know.
Like,
It's insane.
If I was in any sort of action movie or anything, I would be like, get this guy.
It's weird, and I don't know. I wish I knew the answer to that.
Maybe it's just him. Maybe he's like kind of like, I'm good doing what I'm doing.
He might be. A lot of people are.
I met him at the Raid 2. We had a screening here at Cinefamily back when it was open. And I got to meet the director and the star, and was such a cool, chill guy.
Iko Uwais?
Yeah, Iko Uwais.
I've interviewed him.
I
He's
wasn't
really
even
cool.
going to try to pronounce that name.
Yeah, I think it's Iko Uwais. Yeah, I interviewed him.
Please don't ever let that come up in a Schmodown, because I don't even know how to spell that.
I interviewed him once, and it was for a movie he had done. I don't even think it ever came out here. It's about he got amnesia. It was like the martial arts
Headshot?
version of the Bourne Identity. Yeah, it's Headshot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did that
It's
come
on-
out finally?
It's on Netflix.
Okay,
streaming.
cool. Yeah, it's a good movie.
Yeah.
It's really cool action in it. And I was asking him, like, you got all these. You seem like such a lighthearted guy. Like, what do you do to get like worked up? Like, what do you do to get pumped up? And he said, I'm hoping I remember this correctly because I don't want to get the wrong person. If memory serves, he said he puts on headphones and he listens to Tony Braxton.
Wow.
You're just
Really?
like, really?
Okay.
Cool. Yeah.
It's like LeBron listening to In the Air Tonight every time before he plays a game by Phil Collins.
Did he do that?
Yeah, he
I
does.
didn't
Every
know.
time
That's funny.
LeBron listens to that, that's the last song he listens to every time before he goes on the court.
Well, for me, again, so like
In the air
with
tonight.
horror anthologies, you're going to get a mixed bag.
Yeah.
And Twilight Zone, I think, is a mixed bag. I think there's 2 brilliant ones and 2 that probably shouldn't be in the movie.
Interesting. What's the other one you don't like besides the Spielberg one?
I think the Landis one kind of falls flat.
Yeah, it's not. It's interesting.
okay. It's-
I wouldn't call it bad, but it's
Yeah.
more about the behind the scenes that ruins that for me.
It's clearly the weakest link,
Yeah.
regardless. Like it's
Sure.
just kind of obvious. For me, honestly, I think my 2 favorite horror anthologies. One is one from the 1940s.
Holy
Let's say
shit.
41. It was one of the first horror anthologies. It's called Dead of Night.
Okay.
And it is about a guy who goes to a sort of bed and breakfast in the middle of the English countryside. And he starts having this overpowering deja vu. He says, I've been here before.
Okay.
This is strange. I know all of you. And it starts a conversation with everyone there about the supernatural. Do we believe in the supernatural? And it turns out everyone there has had some sort of brush in with the supernatural. The highlight of this one is a really great early evil ventriloquist's dummy story starring the great Michael Redgrave.
Okay.
About a guy who is great ventriloquist.
Love
dummy,
a
but
good doll horror.
Yeah, and the doll might be alive and killing people, and it's really great. And
Okay.
they really weren't doing that yet. That one probably has the best wraparound sequence of all time. And I'm not going to ruin it for you. I will say this: after you watch the original Dead of Night, I think it's been remade, or a couple other movies have used the title.
Okay.
Go to like the 1941-ish version.
Dead of Night.
The wraparound story and the idea they had for it inspired an alternate theory to the creation of the universe. Physicists saw that movie
Jesus
and
Christ.
thought, oh shit, that makes sense. That's a really interesting idea. What if the universe works that way?
Was Einstein working on this with
It
the
was
guy?
not Einstein, but like it's such a clever,
Interesting.
unusual way to end the movie that it created an alternate theory of the universe. That's how cool that one is.
All right, definitely seeking that one out.
But my favorite is actually, and this is a movie that when it came out, it got kind of disregarded by a lot of people. And I know a lot of people didn't go to see it because it looked like a joke movie, but it was recently re-released by Scream Factory.
I think I know what you're going to say because I
Tales from
love
the
it.
Hood?
Yes, Tales from the Hood.
Tales from the Hood is amazing.
I saw it in theaters.
I missed it in theaters.
I saw it in theaters. I lived in, like you said, I'm from Connecticut. There was one theater in Waterbury, Connecticut playing it.
Yeah.
My cousin and my uncle, we got in a car. We drove to Waterbury. It was about half an hour from my house. And we saw it. And I loved it.
Tales from the Hood is a spectacular
Yeah.
motion picture. It's got like funny ones and it's got dark ones,
Mm-hmm.
but they're all super political and they're
Yes.
well reasoned.
Mm-hmm.
There's a story about a young cop who becomes party to a bunch of racist cops killing a civil rights leader. There's one about a young boy who thinks he has a monster in his house, and I will not tell you where that
Yep.
one goes because it's crazy
David
good.
Allen Greer's in that one.
David Allen Greer gives his greatest performance in that movie.
Yep.
He's insane. There's a great one about a racist politician
who buys a house in the South.
Yeah.
and
Oh my God, that
there's-
one's creepy. It's so
Speaking
good.
of killer dolls.
Yeah, and then the last one is super experimental.
Yes, which
It's-
has one of my favorite Spice One songs called Born to Die.
Nice.
And there's a montage to the song Born to Die in that last one. And yeah, it's almost like Clockwork Orange in a way.
Yeah. Now the wraparound device on that one is kind of the most hokey of them all.
Yeah, I agree.
It's fine. It does its job. I think it's Clarence Williams III plays the guy who owns the mortuary in that one. He's kind of over the top and crazy.
Oh, way over the top.
Yeah, but it's fun.
But it's
and
fun.
that movie is not only entertaining, it is really smart, and it really needs a new audience. So anyone who's listening who
Yeah.
hasn't seen it, find that, rent it, stream
Totally.
it. See that movie. It's so good.
I was planning on bringing it up, but you beat me to the punch.
No, it's great.
I saw it in theaters. I loved it then. I do want to get that new Scream Factory because I think it was just end of last year. Or it was the beginning of this year, maybe.
Like a year ago? It was a while ago, but not that long. Yeah, it's really
It's one of those movies I would mention to a lot of people, and a lot of people haven't seen.
Yeah, and again, it was advertised like a lark. And I think people really came in expecting it to be goofy, and that's a problem you run into a lot. It's the reason why, as a critic, I try to avoid a lot of the hype, positive or negative, whenever you can, because it can really skew you.
For sure.
Not just to expect a good movie and then it turns out to be bad, or to expect a bad movie turns out to be good, but it can just sell you on the wrong kind of movie, and then you're judging it based on something the movie isn't trying to be.
I think also that's a product of our times. Back in the 90s, there were times where I didn't hear about a movie until I saw the poster on the wall.
Yeah.
I have a vivid memory when I was very young, walking into my local theater. My parents would take me almost every weekend because I just love going to movies. And I saw a poster for Ninja Turtles, the movie. And I might have lost my mind because I was a huge Turtles fan. I grew up in the 80s. And to see that poster, I haven't heard about the movie.
That was a cool poster, too.
They were all sticking their head out of the sewer.
Yeah.
And they weren't cartoons.
They looked good.
Back in the 90s, there's a lot of movies I would go see, and there was no internet to tell me this is going to be good, this is going to be bad. All you had to go off was the trailers, the posters, and then every Sunday I would watch At the Movies with Siskel and Ebert.
Yeah.
But by then I've usually already seen a movie.
I would read the reviews in the newspaper, and luckily I lived in Los Angeles, which is at the time I grew up in Pasadena actually.
Okay.
And at the time, Pasadena was second only to New York as the city in America with the most independent theater screens.
That's great. They still have a lot of indie.
They still have a lot, but they used to have a lot.
Interesting.
There were a ton, just on Colorado Boulevard. There were six of them, and they were all individual ones too, and they were really classy and old.
I missed so many movies because they just didn't come to my town.
Yeah, so I was lucky, and I got a lot of the independent stuff, a lot of the weird stuff, a lot of the foreign stuff that didn't make it to every town in America. But I would not know about something until I read an article in the LA Weekly or something.
And we're actually going to get into this some more. If you guys are on my Patreon, and if you are a supporter, I do a thing called JT Mini Podcasts, and we're going to talk about some of our favorite movie-going experiences.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about that more. We're getting towards the end of the show, but what I usually like to end the show with is I tweeted out that we were about to record, and I asked people to tweet me the last movie they watched. So we're just going to do a little speed round here.
That's fun.
Yeah, we're going to go through some of the movies people sent us and just give a quick thought on it.
Great, let's do it.
Let's go. Carrot Cake, a.k.a. at Hateful M8.
Okay.
Yeah. Last one they watched was Rough Night, the Scarlett Johansson comedy of last year.
Oh, I still haven't seen that.
Okay.
That's interesting because that's one of those bachelor/bachelorette party and then the stripper dies genre.
Yes,
that's a genre.
It's Very Bad Things.
Very Bad Things. There was also a movie that came out the same year as Very Bad Things, which no one saw, called Stag.
Oh,
It starred
I saw
Andrew
that
McCarthy and I want to say Mario Van Peebles.
Okay.
And I remember thinking it was the better version of it, but no one saw it.
I'll say this. I saw Rough Night. It was pretty forgettable. There's a few funny moments in there.
I would hope
but
so.
Overall, pretty forgetful.
Yeah.
Ed Marquez at Eddie G1G2. Last Starfighter.
Oh, it's one of my favorites.
Okay.
Literally one of my favorite movies. That's actually one of the reasons why I do what I do.
Because of The Last Starfighter.
Well, The Last Starfighter and The Monster Squad are kind of the same movie, kind of in personality. In
some ways, yeah.
Because both of them tell a story. And they came out around the same time when I was 6 or 7. And both of them were stories about how young people and the stuff young people are into, like video games or horror movies,
actually meant something.
They actually have value. Because when I was a kid, I was one of the last generations where people would tell kids, when you go to high school and stuff, you got to put away all those comics.
Oh, or
no
put
more
away
comics,
the video games.
No more video games.
Oh, my God.
Got to stop watching so many movies. You have to just, start being a serious person. And then in the 80s...
Times changed, baby.
that became a valuable industry. So not only were the characters in this using their knowledge of video games and monsters to save the world, but also, clearly, the people who made these movies love those things, and they made movies.
Yeah.
So there's
you're right.
I don't have to put away childish things when I'm an adult. Also, it's really good. I love The Last Starfighter.
I remember being a kid and my parents would be like, you can't play video games when you're older. You know you're eventually going to stop. Every adult I know plays video games now.
On some level, at least on their phone.
Yeah, times changed. Scott Freud at Alpha Romero 513. Princess Mononoke.
Princess Mononoke.
Mononoke, thank you.
That is also one of my favorite movies.
Big fan of that movie. There was a time when I, around high school, when I went from a film lover to like I went to full geek mode.
Yeah.
And I started just digesting everything from not just America, but from foreign films. And Spirited Away was definitely one of those movies that I really latched onto. And then I went on a whole tear on all his movies.
I think
Howl's Moving Castle.
Yeah.
The Flying Castles.
Hell's Moving Castle.
But
because it doesn't fly; it walks on legs.
There's another one, A Castle in the Sky.
Laputa, Castle in the Sky.
That's the one I was thinking of. Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, big fan of Princess Mononoke. It's probably my second favorite of his.
It's my second favorite too. My favorite is definitely My Neighbor Totoro.
Oh, really?
I think it's perfect.
That's like one of his first films.
One
One of his first beloved films.
of his most beloved films. He had already done Castle of Cagliostro, Laputa, and Nausicaa. But yeah, Princess Mononoke, that was the first anime film I had seen in a theater. That had been released in 1999. It was already a huge blockbuster in Japan. And they had gotten not only a really good vocal cast, but they got Neil Gaiman to do the translation.
Oh, okay.
So there's actually that's actually an unusually good dub for anime. But even so, they changed a few things, which I think actually for the worse. Like when Ashitaka leaves his town at the beginning of it.
Yeah.
There's a girl who says goodbye to him, and in the American dub, that's his sister. And she gives him a necklace. And later on, he gives that necklace to Princess Mononoke. In the Japanese version, that's his fiance.
Huh.
So that means something entirely different.
He shouldn't be changing relationships.
That was a big change. Yeah. So there are definitely things like it. But even so, it's gorgeous and it's exciting and it's great fantasy storytelling.
Like someone who really dove into foreign films, like I can't do dub, but I'm okay with animated dub because
usually
if it's done well.
Usually I can handle it. And lately for theatrical releases, they've done a better job. But there was a time, the original, when My Neighbor Totoro was originally released in America, the dub that they had was a nightmare. It was just screaming. Every line of dialogue from those kids was screamed. And it is interminable and it ruins the movie. But lately they've been pretty good.
All right. We're going to a couple more. We're going to try to go a little quicker.
Sorry.
It's okay. Listen, you get passionate about it. Paul Schmidt at PaulFS83. Stargate.
Oh, Stargate's fun.
Yeah, it's good. Early Roland Emmerich.
He had done some weird independent stuff that I don't recommend you seek out because it's pretty bad.
Okay.
He had already done Universal Soldier, which is really cool. But yeah, Stargate's fun. It makes no sense whatsoever if you think about it at all.
Yeah.
But
some of the effects don't hold up very well either.
Yeah, but it's got a fun design and the basic premise is fun. Kurt Russell is great. James Spader's really good.
James Spader's good.
Yeah, I'm a fan. It's dumb, but it's really good.
Yeah, anything with Kurt Russell, I'll watch.
Pretty much. He's one of the most. He's one of the most reliable movie stars we've ever had. He's always good.
I love Captain Iran.
I love it too.
Care what anyone says.
I haven't seen it in a long ass time. I have no idea if it holds up, but I was a big fan of Captain
It's
Iran.
on TNT pretty regularly.
I think I saw Captain Iran twice in theaters. Like, that's how much
I might have too. Here's one. Daniel Richards at Dan Midget. Okay. Sexy Beast.
Oh, Sexy Beast is cool.
Great movie.
Yeah, really great performances.
Ben Kingsley.
Ben Kingsley is the shit in that. Ray Winstone is the shit in that.
It's a two-hander.
Two-hander,
yeah.
And it's not my favorite heist movie or anything like that, but the acting is so damn good. Yeah.
Let's see, Jonah Kaufman. He saw Revenge. Have you seen Revenge yet?
I've not seen it yet. I hear it's so good.
Do yourself a favor, man.
Oh, it's on Shudder, right?
Shudder, but I saw it at Lamley in North Hollywood.
Okay,
it's playing in. I would say go see it in the theater.
If I can, I will.
Yeah.
I hear it's amazing.
Lamley in the NoHo District is playing it. I saw it last weekend. My girlfriend is the one that really wanted to see it, and I'm glad I went because it's one of my favorite of the year so far.
Oh, no shit. Okay.
It's.
I've never heard anyone say anything about it that wasn't a rave.
Yeah.
So I really need to see this.
Guys,
movie.
if you can find it playing near you, go see it. But it is on video on demand, so if you have to, you can watch it at home.
Right now. Underlining it.
Simbros Simon at that Simon Bros, Master of the Universe, Dolph Lundgren.
Dolph Lundgren.
Something that I grew up with. Like, I always have a soft spot, even though I know it's not great.
I had such trouble with Masters of the Universe when I was a kid.
Even when I was a kid.
Because it's a neat movie, but it has nothing to do with the cartoon.
Yeah.
Like, it just takes the characters and does something completely different. I actually, I got to talk to someone who worked on the costumes in that.
Oh, really?
And one of the things he said was that the people making it had no interest in He-Man. However, they were huge fans of Jack Kirby's New Gods.
Okay.
Masters of the Universe was specifically transformed into an unofficial Jack Kirby's New Gods movie. That's why He-Man is totally Orion. Darkseid is totally Skeletor. They added other characters who weren't in He-Man so that they could be like Steppenwolf is in it, but now he's Blade.
Okay.
The whole story is about boom tubes.
Yeah.
Literally, that's the plot of Masters of the Universe. It's about boom tubes.
Good point. And and a magic keyboard.
Yeah, well, that's what they did for it. But yeah, I think it's fun. It's kind of goofy in a lot of ways. But yeah, I like Masters of the Universe.
Yeah, it's one of those movies. It's a product of its 80s, man. When I watch it, I just want some 80s goofiness. I love Skeletor in that movie. Frank Langella. I think he's great.
Really doing his job in that movie. Like he did not just collect a paycheck. Like he really tried to make it fun.
All right, I think that's going to do it. There's plenty more, but I can only get to so many of you guys. I will tweet that out again. William, the Beast Bibbiani. Thank you so much for coming on. I love horror anthologies, and to be able to talk about them is fun because you pointed out a few I've never even heard of. So I'm excited to check some of them out, and if not the whole movie, at least the ones you recommended.
Cool. Well,
the single stories.
Yeah.
And I'm just glad we could bond over Tales of the Hood.
Yeah, no, this is a real treat. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah,
sir.
guys, Tales from the Hood, check it out. Scream Factory. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere, but it's a really good horror anthology film. And Twilight Zone and all those other ones, if you haven't seen, definitely check those out.
Definitely check out Dead of Night. It's so cool. Like it's really way ahead of its time. Like it's really cool.
That's the one I'm gonna check out that you recommend
from
the
the
most.
40s, yeah.
And I'll still stick up for Creep Show 2. I don't think it's the best, but it's got some fun stuff.
It's better than Creep Show 3.
I love it has an animated element to it, where it's like the in between is like a kid who goes into animation. It's like radar. I don't know. Get into it. Well, tell them where they can find you. You know, plug your podcast again.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm on Twitter at William Bibbiani. I write reviews for IGN and The Wrap. I also have 2 podcasts. Again, one of them is critically acclaimed, which is on the Schmoes Know Network. We come out every Sunday. We do new movie reviews, and there's an interactive quotient. You join the Schmoeville Facebook page. You get to vote for the bad movie we review every week, and then we'll pair it with a really classic movie, and we also read a bunch of your letters. So that's every week at Schmoes Know. It's also on the SK Plus YouTube channel. I also host Cancel Too Soon. We review TV shows that lasted 1 season or less. That is not on Schmoes Know. That's its own thing. This week, we are reviewing Cop Rock, which is a hard-boiled, like really like violent political cop show. It's also a musical with songs by Randy Newman every week.
Is it like Streets of Fire level?
It's no, Streets of Fire is good.
Okay.
Although my co-host really liked it, and our guest that week, April Wolf, they both defended it.
Okay.
So there's stuff that really works in it. I don't think it ever finds its footing. So that's going on as well. Cancel Too Soon also has a Patreon, patreon.com/cancel too soon. We have exclusive content there, and we have more actually new cool stuff. My co-host Whitney Seibel and I are going to be doing soon. So stick around, pay attention to my Twitter feed. We've got some stuff we're going to be launching. It's really cool.
Great, man. And if you guys want to hear some more with me and the Beast Bibbiani, check out my Patreon, patreon.com/JTE April Dawn. And we'll see you guys next time. And do me a favor, keep watching those movies.